At Freedom for Animals, we have been working to end the captivity of animals for over 65 years. In that time, we have achieved some amazing things by working alongside animal advocates just like you. We have launched nationwide campaigns, supported public protests, and carried out undercover investigations exposing some of the horrors animals endure in captivity. There has been a monumental ban on wild animals in circuses in Great Britain and Ireland, and we have launched brand new investigations. In 2018, we changed our name from the Captive Animals Protection Society to Freedom for Animals. Freedom for Animals' unique approach combines undercover investigations, grassroots activism, and government-level work to put animals first. For over 6 decades, we have been on the front lines in the fight for animals' freedom. Animals are driven mad by their captivity. In zoos, they pace, sway, neck twirl, and even eat their own feces out of pure frustration and boredom. They are kept in cages, behind walls, and some are even tied down. Marine animals face the same issues as animals kept in zoos, and they too are driven mad by their captivity. They surface break, circle, self-mutilate, and bang themselves against the glass in a desperate attempt to break free. These are all signs of zoochosis. Mobile zoos force animals to endure unnatural and stressful lives. They are transported long distances in tiny boxes. They are forced to interact with humans, often being petted or held for hours on end. Circuses still use animals in the UK. They are made to travel, perform, and endure forced interaction with the public, causing severe stress. We must take action if we are going to see an end to this cruelty and suffering. So please, join us and fight for these animals.
Hi everyone. So that's great that they played that video, because now you know a little bit about what I'm going to talk to you about today. So I'm just so grateful to be here today and talk to you all. It's great to be in the room with everyone, some familiar faces and some new friends as well, which is great. So I'll be discussing our work against zoos and circuses, but also discussing the ways in which you can help animals and bring their suffering back into focus. I'm just going to wait for a second until, well, I can start, and then when it comes on, I'll start more. I just want to take a moment to dwell on something first. Do you ever think about the elephant that you saw when you were a child at the zoo? How sobering is it to think that that elephant is probably still there today? You've moved on and progressed in your life, but they haven't ever left the 4 walls that they're trapped in. Their day-to-day has been exactly the same, repeating the same cycle over and over again. It's just tragic. And that is the terrible reality that inspires all of the work that we do, and we want it to inspire you to take action as well. So Freedom for Animals began as the Captive Animals Protection Society, often known as CAPS to a lot of people in the animal rights world. And we're a charity that's been fighting against the use of animals in circuses, zoos, aquariums, and mobile zoos since 1957. When a lady called Irene Heaton started holding outreach stalls with her friends and set up the charity that we know today. Thank you. So from then on, we've grown to carry out undercover investigations, support public protests, and change public opinion on how animals are used in these areas to in turn change laws. And our ultimate goal is simple, really. Like all of you in this room, we want animal freedom. So first up, I'm going to take you through the issue of zoos before moving on to circuses and other areas of animal exploitation. But I suppose you're thinking, why am I talking about these places to animal rights activists in the first place? Maybe you're thinking, I would never visit one, or I haven't for many years. Or maybe you're thinking, are all of them bad? What about the ones that say that they're rescuing animals? Over the years, I've heard many arguments for why zoos may be worthwhile places, even from non-vegans and vegans at vegan fairs. And that's been quite surprising to me, because if we're aware as vegans of the propaganda spouted from animal industries like animal agriculture and the grass-fed or organic rhetoric that's so readily used, why do people believe zoos' well-marketed conservation claims? And how can people believe there may be some benefit to keeping animals in cages? So these are some of the common arguments we get for why some zoos might be okay. So conservation, a lot of you will have heard. UK law is meant to be one of the best when it comes to protecting animals. It's educational for children to see animals. Some local zoos claim to rescue animals. They protect species, and the animal welfare argument. But realistically, all of these arguments fail to consider the individual behind the cage or glass, and what lifelong imprisonment does to their mental and physical health. So we call it the conservation smokescreen. So there are over 500 zoos in the UK holding thousands of animals captive, their lives viewed as property or stock. So behind the smokescreen, we argue, and it's fact, that zoos hold animals captive for their entire lives. They're kept in cages that cannot possibly copy their wild homes. They break up families by trading and swapping animals with other zoos. They perform invasive procedures to force animals to breed. They kill healthy animals if they are deemed no longer useful. It's estimated that up to 10,000 healthy animals are deliberately killed in European zoos every year. And they tether and manipulate animals to force them to perform. So I'd just like to take you on a little journey of the experiences individual animals have had to endure in zoos. And the first is a case from an ex-zookeeper who recently shared his personal experiences with us by writing an anonymous blog. He was a gorilla keeper for a number of years before going vegan whilst working at the zoo. He recounts a traumatic memory he has of being there when they sent one of the female gorillas in the family troop to another European zoo as part of a breeding program. He says, when the day came to move her, her partner, the silverback, was banging as hard as he could on the door, pan-hooting in fear and distress, desperately trying to be reunited with her. Little did she know that she would never see her partner again, or her son, sisters, mother, nieces, nephews, their bond ripped apart for profit. At the new zoo, she was a mess. She was visibly and audibly broken. She pan-hooted constantly in stress, wouldn't eat. She was not comforted by my presence at all. And then who can blame her? All she wanted was to go back home to the family she had built and loved so dearly for decades. Back in the UK for weeks, after her separation, her son cried. He screamed for his mother, but she was thousands of miles away, also screaming for him. To this day, this is by far the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced. I have so much guilt about it still, and it causes me so much pain knowing that I was partly responsible for it. Yet sadly, this is not an isolated case, and it happens all the time in zoos. Another case study here is the life of Chai. She sadly died in Oklahoma City Zoo in 2016. Her story is a devastating example of the desperate measures zoos will take to force elephants to breed. Chai was trained for 2 years to break her into succumbing to the very invasive procedure of forced artificial insemination. The process required her to be anchored by her feet and have a 3-foot hose inserted into her reproductive tract. She was forcibly inseminated 112 times in her lifetime. But it remained unsuccessful, so later she was sent to another zoo to breed, despite it experiencing an outbreak of elephant herpes, which is rife in zoos. Chai was injured by the other elephants at this new zoo and lost about £1,300 in a year. She was then sent back to the original zoo, and they discovered she was pregnant. But sadly, her calf hands had died from the same virus at just 7 years old. As vegans, we rightly discuss all the ways in which animal agriculture industry exploits mothers and their reproductive organs, and the trauma that causes both mentally and physically. But what about in zoos, where the same terrible exploitation occurs, but it is instead hidden under the guise of conservation? There's another case study here, which I don't sadly have time to go into today, but it's the UK version of what happened to Chai, and it only happened 3 years ago, so it just shows that it's happening day to day for these animals. The main marketing tactic that zoos and aquariums use to gain public support is to push the conservation argument. But when you look behind the facade, what's the truth? In reality, the majority of animals held captive in zoos and aquariums are not endangered or even threatened in the wild. And in fact, between 92% and 95% of animals held in zoos and aquariums are not endangered. So why are they there? Zoos have been around since the 1800s, but species in the wild have continued to decline. So what is the point? How can they justify the prolonged torture of captivity? The suffering animals experience in zoos is not always visible to humans, or we choose to ignore it. Animals are not always injured, screaming, bleeding, or dying in view of the public, so it's harder to get across to the people exactly how much they suffer from imprisonment. Yet the reality is that animals are kept in cages for their entire lives, so that humans can view them for mere seconds as entertainment. This is not for any other purpose than humans' own curiosity, and it's such a frivolous waste of life. The vast majority will be born in zoos and die in zoos. So many animals are born to be put on show to visitors, and then, of course, it becomes impossible to house them all with the breeding of those animals. So they are killed to free up space for future baby animals to bring in the visitor numbers, and the cycle repeats itself again and again. We already nodded to the fact that 10,000 healthy animals are known to die in zoos each year. The fact isn't hidden, and it's in ARCS' own zoo guide outwardly talking about that form of population management. Aquariums are underwater zoos, and the situation is as dire. They often claim to help with conservation, yet the majority of fishes held in their tanks are not threatened in the wild, and many were even stolen from their wild homes. This not only causes, of course, extreme stress and trauma to the animals, but their devastating capture methods destroy wild habitats and kill coral reefs. How can aquariums claim any conservation benefits when they are literally decimating wild populations and natural habitats? I'm not going to play the video that's next, as you have seen some of it already in that other video, but it is just describing the obvious trauma psychologically that animals suffer in zoos, which is known as circuses. There's circling, self-mutilating, and banging themselves against glass in a desperate bid for freedom that is often seen with animals who experience severe trauma at their imprisonment. So pinioning and tethering is a cruel way in which many zoos hold animals captive, especially birds. Don't know if you can obviously see in the top two pictures there. It's known as pinioning. And it's not the same as wing clipping, clearly. It is cutting the wing bone literally in half. At a few days old, birds in zoos and wetland centres have one half of their wings amputated to permanently prevent flight. It's such a brutal practice, it's even banned on birds in farms, but it is still industry practice in the zoo industry. And birds are being deliberately mutilated so they can be put on display with no need for a large enclosure, netting, or cages. And then tethering is the horrible process of literally chaining animals up to keep them captive. Thousands of bears are being forced to endure this suffering, manipulated and starved alongside this to ensure they perform in public shows. We must ask the question, regardless of reason or motive, why do humans think they have the right to view animals in any sense or to have any superiority over their lives? Caging animals against their will is exploitation, domination, and speciesist. No amount of claimed conservation or education benefit can ever excuse it. So there are 5 animal circuses as well left in the UK. Our tireless campaigning did help to bring in the wild animals in circuses ban, which has been mentioned today already, and it came into force in 2020, but sadly didn't stop some of from the continuing exploitation of animals like horses, goats, llamas, birds, and dogs. These animals were wrongly left behind by the ban, and they do need us to continue to speak up for them, just like we did for the tigers, lions, and elephants. We do need your help with that, though, of course. So back in the day, part of the main animal rights calendar for local groups, as you will have seen in Tom's talk, was to protest the local animal circus when they came to town, as well as other animal exploitation events. Since the ban came in, this focus seems to have fallen away in recent years, and we need to bring it back to finally achieve justice for all animals used in them. Some of the main tactics used to get the wild animals ban was to protest outside circuses, whilst also lobbying the local council and reaching out to landowners to apply pressure for them to ban animal circuses on their land. It's a tactic we can still use today. And we can't forget that while the Wild Animals in Circuses Act came in, wild animals were banned, but those being used in travelling animal exhibitions under a different guise are still going on today. If an owl tethered in a ring is considered unacceptable, why are they acceptable to be used in a shopping centre or a care home? If reindeer and camels suffer stress being transported and forced to perform in circuses, why are they able to be carted around the country for busy city centre parades or for festive mobile zoo events? The inconsistency is not only illogical, and it's dangerous for animals, the public, and the environment. Sadly, mobile zoos are rapidly expanding and largely unregulated. To the vast majority at first glance, they may appear harmless. It usually involves animals being brought to schools, care homes, or parties for educational encounters. But what we uncovered in our latest investigation reveals an entirely different reality, one that is hidden, unregulated, and profoundly unjust. We released a 2024 report titled Mobile Zoos, Mobile Misery, which examined the licensing, welfare, and other issues relating to these exhibitions. It found at least 434 active mobile zoo businesses, which is a 132% increase since our initial reports on it in 2016. But it's a very conservative figure, and we do expect there to be many, many more. These operations involve transporting wild animals, such as reptiles, birds, and mammals, in cramped, barren containers, subjecting them to excessive handling, loud environments, and stressful travel, often without appropriate food, rest, or water. Our investigation highlighted how the industry systematically violates the basic animal welfare principles known as the 5 freedoms, which is a well-recognised framework under the Animal Welfare Act. And these are, of course, not optional. They are the foundation of what every sentient animal should receive when held in captive environments, and that's at the very, very least. We found widespread evidence that animals are suffering, and these so-called welfare measures are not even closely being met. And who is challenging that? Who is protecting animals? It's down to us. The legislation means nothing to them, and it will not protect them. We've already discussed the ways in which people power can create change for animals, and we can use these past successes to provide a blueprint for the future and continue that work to achieve a ban on all animals in circuses, other travelling animal exhibitions, and even the closing down of zoos. Because in reality, the animal entertainment industry is low-hanging fruit for the animal rights movement. A ban on all animals in circuses is possible. Closing down your local zoo is absolutely possible. Public opinion is changing, but we can make it happen faster. Everyone in this room will know how hard it is to gain justice for animals in such a non-vegan world. And we all feel that hardship every single day. But if we focus our attention on these winnable campaigns, it could be the catalyst the movement needs to gain even more success in all areas of animal exploitation. It can fuel the fight. So it's also important to remember, which has already been highlighted in all these amazing talks, that it just takes one person to inspire a movement. Remember Irene, who started Freedom for Animals on her own with her friends. The best way to start is to pick a local target and start a pressure campaign by setting up protests, holding an outreach stall, and rallying public support for your cause. Talk about the individual animals there rather than the overall suffering, and how buying a ticket is contributing to their individual injustice. Together we can win this fight. I really, really believe that. All the past achievements made in the fight against these industries is down to activists like us. We have supported activists holding their own protests for many, many years. So a lot of you already do hold them. There's been an amazing protest outside Edinburgh Zoo already, and places like Sea Life London hold regular demos. And it's truly admirable, as with a small team, you can create a hell of a lot of change. We're also a small team at Freedom for Animals. We do punch above our weight. We're taking on a lot of different issues, but we know how vital the grassroots movement is to seeing change happen, which is why we want to support as much as we can and where we can. Like, there's been many victories for animals, such as the huge, Tom might remember this, the huge victory for animals that was achieved when Southport Zoo closed down. And that was all carried out after individual protests were held there every single week by dedicated activists. It truly shows that pressure campaigning works, and it's vital for the fight for freedom. And of course, we're here to help by amplifying any events you organise, sending you free materials, and just being there as a support by email when you need it. So please take action for animals with us, and thank you very much.